Now, I invite members from the None in 3 Uganda team to talk about game development in Uganda. We will meet Peace, who is the lead character of this game as well. If anybody has any questions regarding the None in 3 Uganda game, please do not hesitate to write to us or ask your questions on the YouTube chat.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session of the PTC conference. My name is Esther Nanfuka. I'm the research fellow of the Nani 3 project, Makerere University, which is based in Kampala, Uganda. So I'm going to present about the Uganda game named Peace. Peace is a pro-social game developed to teach children about child marriage and GBV in Uganda, and it derives its name from the main character, a girl named Peace. So in terms of structure, I'll take you through the main characters and overview of the game plotline, then talk about the game objectives, and then the target audience and our plans to roll out the game, then the game development process, an overview of the game trial, which we've just concluded, and an overview of the research that informs the game plotline. So this is an interface of the first chapter. The game has a total of 5 chapters, and each plays out in different scenes. So the first chapter plays out in the home, and this is Peace's house. This is her kitchen. This is the latrine. This is the garden. And then chapter 2 and 3 play out in the market scene, this is the market. Then chapter 4 plays out in the marital home, Peace's marital home, after she goes off with the boda for marriage. And then chapter 5 partly plays out in the home scene when Peace is rescued and returns home, and then later when she's sent back to school. So who are the main characters? So we have a total of 7. These are the ones who appear physically in the game. And we have Peace, who is 15 years. We have Michael, her brother, who is 14 years. Agnes, her stepmother. Simon, their father. Jane, the police officer. Jonathan, who is a friend to Simon and the head teacher of the school where the children go. And then Paul, the boda rider. So in pictures, these are the characters. So starting with Peace, an opinionated girl who loves to go to school, but unfortunately, her parents have denied her the opportunity because they believe that taking girls to school is a waste of time, as they are only worth their bride price. So they prefer that she stays home to get groomed for marriage by learning domestic chores and taking care of a home. Then this is Michael. Michael is Peace's little brother. They share the same mother and also had a big sister called Harriet. But Harriet has since disappeared from home for over a year and they don't know where she is. But her parents don't even want to talk about it. Michael and Peace are very close. They play together. And Michael is a very inquisitive child, but also very protective of his sister and plays a very big role in trying to stop her from going with the boda rider after he convinces her that he can take care of her. But when he fails at that point, because Peace feels she's doing the right thing for herself and, decides to go with the boda man, Michael is the one who reports the case to the police officer and also the father, and together they go to rescue Peace shortly after she has got into marriage. And then this is Agnes, the stepmother to Peace and Michael. She has her own children, 2 boys, and she clearly favors the boys and is cruel towards Peace and Michael. Many times denies them opportunity to go to school. And even when she allows Michael to go, sometimes Peace perpetually stays at home because she's strongly against her education because she's a girl. And many times she denies Michael and Peace food, while Michael is the one who tills the garden and Peace is the one who does the household chores. It's her children and her husband and herself who normally eat the food. And then this is Simon. Simon, Peace and Michael's dad. He's also not really supportive in terms of ensuring that Peace and Michael are sent to school. He talks to his wife, but the wife seems to have overpowered him. But at the bottom of it, he also doesn't believe that a girl should go to school. And he's particularly disappointed that Harriet disappeared. So he's also biased that girls get stubborn and may take off at any time, even after you've done good things for them. He's, for instance, quoting how he bought Harriet a phone and she still ran away from home. And then there is Jane here, the police officer. Jane plays a very big role of investigating cases of child marriage, and we are first introduced to her when she comes to the family home to try and follow up the disappearance of Harriet. So, although the parents are very, cruel to her and don't want to talk about it, she still follows the case up and eventually discovers that the girl actually got married as a child, and eventually they will rescue her as well. So, and Jane also plays a very big role of teaching Michael about the dangers of child marriage. Tells him how the children get abused, how they get sexually transmitted infections, and how their dreams and aspirations are shattered when they get married as children. And this is what gives Michael confidence to share that Peace went with a Boda Boda rider. Initially, he had not talked to anyone, although he kept hanging around the police officer to try and hear what she's finding about his sister Harriet's disappearance. And when he talks him through all these different difficulties that a girl may encounter when they get married early, then he gets determined and motivated to talk about uh, Peace's ordeal. And then together with Jane and Simon, they are able to rescue her as soonest. They didn't take a very long time. And then this is Jonathan, together with Michael, can be considered the male champions in the game. So Jonathan is very influential in terms of talking to Simon about the benefits of taking their girls to school. And by the time he's finished with his conversation with Simon, Simon is convinced that he actually needs to fight to take his daughters to school. Okay, and it is, after this conversation that Michael comes to tell him about Peace's disappearance, and he quickly moves together with the police officer to go and rescue his daughter because now he's convinced that he can actually, empower her and send her to school. And then we have Paul here, who can be called the villain. So Paul is the Boda Boda rider who meets Peace at the market when she has been sent together with Michael to buy foodstuff. So, and he, takes advantage of her vulnerability, especially she's not been feeding. They keep her home. She's always doing household chores from morning to evening. She's on her feet. She has to wash everybody's clothes, including Michael, including her parents, including her stepbrothers. She has to to cook the food. Every household chore is on her head because she's a girl. Okay, so she's always exhausted. So she meets this man who detects that perhaps she's even hungry, hasn't eaten, buys her Rolex, talks her into going with him to get married, and promises her heaven on earth how he's going to take care of her. She'll never have to go to the market to shop. She will have everything she wants, food, clothing, everything. So Peace listens to the man, and even when Michael tries to intercept the conversation and dissuade Peace from going off with the man, she feels she's making the right decision for herself. So to her, it's a way to escape the suffering that she's being subjected to the home. So she doesn't even listen to Michael. She quickly jumps on the Boda Boda, and the man takes her off for marriage. So, what are the game objectives? So, through the game, we hope to inform young people in Uganda about sexual coercion and abuse as both a consequence of and contributing factor in child marriage. And we also seek to empower young people to report incidents of child sexual abuse and sexual coercion. And in the game, there are a lot of flyers and a lot of information about where to report, including the Child Helpline 116, and also some flyers from the NGOs who we collaborated with, which gives children information about child marriage and how it's illegal and where they can report it. Then we also seek to help young people to understand what sexual exploitation is and how it is linked to gender inequalities. And we also seek to increase young people's understanding about how adult power is misused to abuse and silence them. So in scene one or chapter one, we encounter Peace talking to the mother, trying to advocate and persuade her to allow her to go to school, but she doesn't want her to say anything. She's instead shutting her up, And even when the police officer later comes to try and find out what happened to Harriet, the children definitely want to know what happened. They also want to share some information, but the mother in particular is sending them away and doesn't want them to say anything, calling them stubborn and disrespectful. And this is how they were using their power to actually prevent peace from, taking decisions about her education and deciding what she wanted to do. And then we also seek to show young people that perpetrators will seek out and exploit young women's vulnerabilities. And this is what the Boda Boda Rider did exactly. And also help young people to understand the impact that sexual coercion has on everyone involved. So we see Peace suffering, being subjected to abuse. She's being beaten. The first thing the guy does is to take her money away, the money she had gone with to the market. He doesn't buy her food, makes her labor from morning to evening, doing household chores. And of course, all the people involved, the father, the Michael, they are all distressed because the girl has got married and disappeared from home. And then we also seek to empower young people in reporting incidents of child sexual abuse and sexual coercion. Like I've said, there's a lot of information in terms of where to report and seek support. And then increase awareness of the role of various agencies and individuals that can help. And then help young people to understand ways in which adults may groom them using various tactics. So we've seen mother and father are grooming Peace for marriage by pulling her out of school and teaching her, household chores. Then Paul is also grooming Peace, talking her into marrying him, and then takes her away. And then we also seek to support and empower young people in avoiding child marriage by, first of all, increasing empathy towards children who are affected by child marriage. And then two, helping young people to understand that early marriage is not a solution to poverty and also maltreatment at home. And three, helping young people to understand the suffering that child marriage can cause. For example, that marriage at a young age can expose young people to abuse and disadvantage and prevent them from realizing their aspirations. So in terms of game structure, like I've said, the game has 5 chapters and each is equivalent to a lesson in a school day. Okay, now each of these chapters has specific learning points. So here I'm giving an example of only chapter 1. So in chapter 1, we seek to show children that parental neglect, negative attitudes towards the education of girls, and perception of marriage as a panacea for deprivation and a source of economic security for women increases the risk for school dropout and child marriage. And this is what was happening to Peace exactly. A lot of neglect, she's not given food, the parents are against her education, and they actually believe that she will be better off. All she needs is to learn how to do household chores, learn how to take care of her home, and then she will get a man who will pay a very high bride price and then take care of her. So, and that's why they are keeping her out of home and eventually grooming her for marriage. And then we also seek to show them that gender inequality and gender stereotypes lead to lesser value being placed on girls' education, and the belief that the role of females should be solely as wife, mother, and domestic worker. And this is what Peace's parents are doing exactly. And then gender inequalities robs females of the rights to make their own decisions concerning their future. And this is what we are seeing concerning Peace. So Peace cannot even go to school, even if she would have loved to, because the parents believe as a girl, she does not need school. Instead, she needs to learn how to take care of a home and become a wife. And then gender inequality is perpetuated by women as well as men. So we see Agnes is one of the biggest perpetrators of gender inequality in the way she treats, favors her boys, including Michael, because sometimes at least she sends him to school, while Peace is left at home, first of all, to do all the household chores. And at the same time, she can't even go to school. Then there are very significant health risks to females bearing children at an immature age. And as child marriage is illegal, the practice is often cloaked in secrecy. And that's why when Jane comes to the family home to engage about the disappearance of Harriet, the parents don't even want to talk about it and practically throw her out of the house. So who is the target? And how do we hope or plan to roll out the game? So we are targeting children aged 14 to 17 years. And in Uganda, this is S1 to about S5. Now we have the game, but also we've developed a curriculum to support the prevention of child marriage and gender-based violence in Uganda. And this curriculum also, explains how to use the game in day-to-day teaching. So we hope to sell both the game, especially after we have proved that it works in terms of changing children's attitudes and behaviors towards GBV issues and child marriage. So both of them, we hope to give them to the Ministry of Education and Sports for use in teaching children about gender equality and child marriage. And we believe that these two tools can complement the delivery of the National Sexuality Education Framework of 2018. So we are also going to have a public release game. What we are using in the game trial was a trial, so it is where it is going to be improved. And the version that will be released will be playable on several devices, including phones. This one we were using laptops, so including phones, so it should be able to reach as many people as possible. But also for the children without access to devices, especially from our poor communities and maybe poor schools, we are going to make booklets with the game Plotline so they can also read and learn. And then as we were seeking authorization to do the game trial in schools within Kampala, we met with director of the education department or directorate in KCCA or Kampala Capital City Authority are the administrators of the city. So we met with them, we played the version of the game we were using for the game trial for a couple of minutes, and they were intrigued at our innovativeness and creativity in teaching children through play. So they pledged to support the promotion of the game in their school. So we are going to keep both the ministry and the KCCA involved in the rest of our activities, particularly the dissemination, so that we plan on how we can get them to roll out the game in Ugandan schools. Now, how did the game development process go? So it was a lengthy process and it was a back and forth involving collaboration among many actors. So we had the games development team in the UK. Then we also had the NIT Secretariat at the University of Huddersfield. And then the Nan in 3 Core research team in Uganda. We are a total of 5 members. Then we also had the Young Persons Advisory Group involved. And this constitutes young people. Some are university students, while others are in the communities around the university, particularly those who are supported by the CSOs that we collaborate with on the project. And then we also have the local NGOs, especially the Remnant Generation and Joy for Children, who gave us leaflets, real life leaflets that they use in their day-to-day work, which are incorporated in the game to teach children about child marriage and where they can report incidents. Now, we, the core research team, together with the young persons, always reviewed the scripts to ensure that they were culturally and age appropriate, but also that the language was simple enough for children, even in the poor schools where their English may not be as advanced. And the young people are very, very helpful in helping us determine the appropriate terms to use. So now let me talk a little bit about the game trials. So we were among the few countries that managed to conduct a game trial, and this was conducted between April 26, 2021 to May 21st, 2021. So, but of course, the engagement activities started months earlier, and even the week before April 26, we were in the field doing the sampling and ensuring that the parental consent forms go out in advance and that the children whose parents are not ready to permit them to participate can opt out, and we replace the sample. So now the purpose of the trials was to investigate the effectiveness of the game in promoting pro-social attitude and behavior change and empathic capacity among the children. So we targeted a total of 4 schools in Kampala and Wakiso districts. In Kampala, the schools that participated were Kalinabiri SS and Natete Muslim High School. And then in Wakiso, we had Chira SS and Insanji SS. So these schools were purposively selected. First, they participated in the psychosocial survey we had done earlier. They were very ready to receive us and to revise their schedules to accommodate us, and they were very, very supportive because we went at a time when things were a bit difficult after COVID, and there was a lot of catch up to do because children had been out of school for over a year, but they were that flexible that they allowed us the time to engage the children. And then, of course, most of the children who go to these schools come from the poor areas of Kampala in the urban slums where child marriage and it is a big problem. So we felt also that targeting them may actually contribute towards teaching them about child marriage and maybe rescue a few here and there. So we selected a total of 304 children aged 14 to 17 years from all the 4 schools, and we had equal numbers of girls and boys. So the children was divided into 2 groups: the experimental group, which played the game on a laptop we provided, and then the control group, which did not play the game, or we did not expose them to any intervention except to what they were already receiving from the school curriculum. Okay? So for us to be able to tell the difference between those who played and those who did not play in terms of attitudes and behavior, so we administered a survey to all of them, both in the control and experimental group, at 3 time points. Okay, so at the beginning, before the game was played, then after the 5 days of gameplay, then each of those in the control group and the experimental group also filled out the same survey, and then we returned to the schools a week later after 7 days. Then both those in the control and in the experimental group filled the same survey. So the survey basically sought for children's opinions about certain issues in terms of how girls and boys should be treated or how women and men should be treated. So they were expected to either tick, strongly disagree, whether they were neutral, whether they agreed, or whether they strongly agreed. So this is a sample of a section in the survey questionnaire. So for instance, the first question was asking, girls should focus on learning skills such as cooking and cleaning to prepare them for looking after a husband and family. So they were supposed to tick one of them. Then the second was about, if a family does not have much food, the little food that they have should be shared equally between boys and girls. And then boys and girls should have equal opportunities to attend school. Then it is less important for girls to get an education because they will eventually become wives and mothers. So we are going to see whether there is a difference in the way, in the opinions of children who played the game, especially different from the baseline, and then the second survey and the third survey, to see if the changes in opinion are sustained a week later. Okay, so that's what will tell us whether the game is effective or not. Now, so the data from the game trial is still being analyzed. Nevertheless, we had discussions with children after gameplay to try and understand their experience of playing the game and how the game had impacted them. So the feedback we have from the participants who played the game suggests that actually they were impacted and learned a lot from the game. For instance, there is this 17-year-old male who was in senior 3 who said the game was enjoyable because the characters were real and it was easy to navigate. So that one was about the playing. And then another 17-year-old male from senior 3 said the game was so interesting. So interesting because I have learned that impregnating young girls is so bad and the perpetrators should be arrested and imprisoned. This is because young girls can easily get sexually transmitted infections. I have learned this while playing the game, but also reflecting on what is happening in the society nowadays. Then another boy had this to say, the game has been inspiring, especially to us the boys. I borrow this from the game on how Michael treated his sister Peace. I think that is what all brothers should do to their sisters, but also on the side of girls, they should correct their siblings in case they are going astray. Then another boy said, I have learned that you should not deny a young girl, girls and boys, rather a young child, girls and boys food, because it will result into her being tempted into unhealthy sexual relationships with older men. Also, boys can be tempted by sugar mummies. Then another boy said, I have learned that both boys and girls have equal rights according to what they do. For example, if it is going to school, they should all go together to avoid early marriages. And then one female said, the game was interesting, but Agnes annoyed me because she was cruel towards peace, and we can see the empathy here now. Then another girl said, I have learned that I can talk to children likely to be victims of child marriage through counseling them. Okay. And then the last participant we included in the PowerPoint said, the game teaches girls not to trust anyone. You saw Paul. He lied, peace that trust me, I will provide anything you want, such as food. But when they reached home, she was instead abused by Paul. Okay, so that gives us an overview of what the participants learned from the game and how they felt playing the game, which is promising. Now, a little bit about the research that informed the game Plotline. So, the game is built around lived experiences of women who got married as children. So, we conducted a qualitative study entitled Issues, Beliefs, and Experiences of Child Marriage and Gender-Based Violence in Uganda. And this was way back in 2018, between July and August. So, among our objectives, we sought to explore social and cultural predictors or drivers of child marriage among girls at individual, household, and community level. And those are mainly stories we got from the girls who got married, from women, they are now adult women, who got married as girls. Then we also sought to explore the consequences of child marriage for both the victims and the Ugandan society, and then to investigate the conceptualizations, prevalence, predominant forms, and causes of GBV in Uganda, and also to extract lessons that can be used to develop ecologically sound anti-GBV video games aimed at changing cultural, social, religious, and other attitudes towards GBV and child marriage in Uganda. And this is where the game came from. So in terms of focus, study areas, we conducted the study in the northern part, in the districts of Gulu and Amuru, and in central region, where we went to Kampala, Wakiso, Masaka, and Nakasongola. And the participants included 45 female survivors of child marriage, 12 of whom were formerly abducted girls. So those were among the participants from the north. Then we also talked to males aged 25 and above who were exposed to violence but not violent. Then we also talked to male youth aged 16 to 24 exposed to violence but not violent, and male youth 16 to 24 who had completed or were at least halfway through a violence reduction program. And these were mainly got from Kampiringisa Rehabilitation Center. And we mainly talked to those who had committed GBV-related crimes like defilement. And then male and female community members. These were mainly parents, adults in the community, where the female survivors of child marriage were selected from. So among our key findings, and these are key themes in the game, one, we found that there is little knowledge of GBV among study participants, with most of the study participants viewing GBV as synonymous with general human rights violations, domestic violence, and violence against children and other vulnerable populations, such as people with disability. And most of the participants agreed that GBV was very common, with some estimating it to be as high as 70 to 90%. But of course, the national statistics cite lower rates in the 50s there. So this could have been because most of these participants, thought GBV was any form of violence. And then we also found 5 main drivers of child marriage. This is poverty, teenage pregnancy, school dropout, child abuse in the home, and armed conflict. And these factors were intricately linked and operated at individual, household, and community levels. So we, for instance, found that poverty was an underlying factor in almost everything. So for instance, it directly led to school dropout, maybe by the family is not having fees to pay for the children, but also indirectly as the children faced difficulty getting scholastics, food, and etc. So they got discouraged and dropped out. And normally, when they dropped out, then they were vulnerable to advances from men who were luring them with gifts. So many times they ended up engaging in sexual relationships, they got pregnant, and once they got pregnant, either they were married off, forced to get married to the man, or some of them feared the wrath of their parents and eloped. And many times they were convinced by men who were trying to, run away from fearing that they would be convicted of defilement. Then they whisk them off. So there was a lot of elopement happening in that regard. Okay, now, key among the findings was that girls are not necessarily married off by their parents, but that several of them take the decision to marry for several reasons. Okay, and this also plays out in the story of peace. Okay, it's not that the parents directly get a man and bring. Sometimes the girls take the decisions by themselves, and for many reasons. One, because many of them see marriage as the best alternative to formal education. So once they drop out of school, then the next thing is on their mind is to get married. And then many of them also see marriage as an escape from poverty and domestic abuse, like what peace thought at the beginning. And of course, normally there are men in the background also, luring them and preying on their vulnerabilities and promising them heaven on earth. And then many of them also saw marriage as a source of social and economic security. So, and these findings underscored the need to empower children to say no to child marriage. So, by first of all, educating them about the dangers of child marriage, and also teaching them that poverty is not a solution to problems, teaching them where to seek support, teaching them about vocational education as an alternative to formal schooling. Okay, it is so, and these are core themes in the game that play out in the game. So at some point, when Peace is rescued from the marriage, she's taken back to school, but also the children are exposed to different situations that Peace, could have taken. She could have gotten a tailoring course. She could have become gone into learned another vocational skill. So there are many of those scenes that play out, which Peace could have routes that Peace could have taken rather than going to marriage. So that is all we had for today. Thank you very much for listening.
Dr. Esther, thank you so much for that presentation. You're here with us today and you have given us an extremely insightful understanding of what the Uganda game has invoked with the young people who have actually trialed the game. Do you want to elaborate a little more on the challenges that you faced during this trial?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mahek, for giving me the chance to respond to questions and give more information about the Uganda game. So you're more interested in the trial. So we just concluded the trial. I think it's now slightly over a month ago. And there were so many issues, of course, we had not anticipated. So for instance, the game or the play was planned for 5 days, and the preliminary activities on day one took much more, longer than we had anticipated, and yet we had requested for only 2 hours from the schools. So when we got there, the mobilization, the survey itself, the baseline survey, the first survey that the children are supposed to fill, because it was a new experience, many of them had never filled those surveys. We had to do a lot of interpretation. There was the consenting process. So by the time the first group of players were supposed to play, the 2 hours had actually lapsed. So on the first day, in most of the schools, most of the players did not play. Only a few managed to play because we always went in the evening hours or afternoon hours, and the children had to go home. Most of these were day schools. So, and in places which are not very conducive and safe, urban slums, the children have to be released early for security purposes. So, but eventually we engaged the schools. The good thing, they were very, very flexible and supportive. So they allowed us to take an extra day. So instead of 5 days, we took 6 days in most of the schools, including weekends sometimes. They would mobilize the children to come back like on Saturday, and then we engage them. And then the other thing, the other thing, of course, we also had not anticipated that children would find difficulty using the laptops. Many of them had never touched a computer before. And the empowering thing is that many of them were so excited to finally have touched a laptop. And their esteem grew. That is some of the feedback we got from the teachers. They were feeling confident. And the ones who did not get the chance to play were asking, was it a real laptop? Did you use a real mouse? So it was enriching and fulfilling to see that some of them also got empowered through the experience of simply touching a machine they have never seen. So they were extremely slow in the beginning, but very smart children, because by the second day, most of them had picked up, and then we were able to fit within the 2 hours that we got. So, but the biggest thing for us, the biggest resource and opportunity we had was the relationship with the schools. They were listening, they were open, to the extent that some of them even canceled programs to be able to allow us the time when we got caught up in the maze because of the unanticipated challenges. Yeah, so I would say, and maybe a few technical things here and there, but those were minor. The biggest challenges were the issue of time and ensuring that everybody gets to play within the 2 hours that we were given.
Thank you for noting that. I'm actually curious to know if these children were told that the game is meant for educational purposes, and whether that changed their initial attitude and their initial perception of the game.
Yeah, so from the word go, when we were engaging the schools, because we went to each of the schools a week earlier, before, like if we had scheduled to do this trial the following week, we would visit that school. We had those preliminary engagements with the administrations, but when it came to gameplay, we took a whole day the week before, like Tuesday, if we are going to start on Monday, on Tuesday, we'd visit the school, go to each of the classes where the age range is, and then they would write their names on the list, put for us the ages, would explain what the whole thing is about to them. And then we would sample there and then tell those who have been randomly selected to participate. Of course, all of them wanted to participate. So, but, so they understood, and the excitement was still as high. The whole thing of playing the game, these are not opportunities they get quite often. Much as the curriculum in Uganda, of course, is changing, and we had a lot of desk work. Our old curricula have been a bit academic oriented, so they are trying to change. And this was a timely opportunity because the curriculum, especially for the lower classes, is transiting into teaching them more creativity and innovation, and play is one of the things, and use of computers. So we didn't really face any challenges. All of them were enthusiastic. Many times, when they knew we were arriving at 2 or 3, we would find them, if they had no lesson, waiting for us at the hall. So it didn't change much.
That's actually interesting to note, because you some of the quotes that you mentioned of the students giving their feedback after playing the game were amazing to see that they've actually taken something back from it. How would you sort of describe how did the teachers or the faculty of the schools, how did they sort of respond to the game and this whole trial?
Yeah, of course, many of them were asking if we're going to leave the game for them so that they can continue allowing children to play it. And I think purposely selecting these schools, schools that are in the urban slums and basically target children from those communities where child marriage is a very big problem, was also, I would say, a good opportunity. So most of them actually accepted us to trial the game in their schools because they thought it is something that is a problem. They were citing for us cases of children who had not returned to school because they had got married off, a lot of teenage pregnancies and all that. So they were very open and excited to roll out the game. And if we could actually leave the game with them, they would have gladly embraced it. Yes, they were very, very supportive. All of them always used to come to see what we are doing and very excited about the whole arrangement of using play to teach children about something, but also integrating research therein. Many of them had not seen it before as well.
It's really nice to hear that they were so forthcoming. In fact, my next question to you is, whether during gameplay were there instances of trigger, or were there any children who were playing the game who spoke out of their own experiences of child sexual abuse or early marriage, and how did you deal with them if that's the case?
Okay, we didn't really get cases of maybe trigger or trauma or whatever. We didn't. But in our discussions, many of the children were simply reflecting on what the game, the storyline of the game, and what they've seen in their communities, and maybe sharing that, yeah, actually in my home, we the girls do a lot of household chores. I think I'm going to engage my mother. I think I'm going to do ABCD and all that. So we would simply encourage, and also they have teachers who help them sort such issues, and they encourage them to share as much as possible, but we also give them our numbers and numbers for the district probation and welfare officers who handle such issues in the communities where they live, but also the child helpline where they could call. But so far, we haven't received much on our side, although they go and engage the teachers because we are still in touch.
Noted. What would you say the next step, or how does the future of these games look like to actually making the impact that they're designed for?
I think in Uganda, the situation is promising. There are a lot of opportunities, like I've explained in the presentation, that we are going to tap into, because under the beauty with the topic, or the topic of focus, child marriage, you've heard from Angela and what she's been presenting. It's the situation is now bad because of COVID. So it's on everybody's mind, news everywhere. They're talking about girls who have been married off, and then girls who have got pregnant, so it's timely. And I believe in Uganda, we shall make headway if we are planning to tap into all the opportunities. So the authorities are willing to support us to ensure that the game rolls out, but we are also in touch with UNICEF and some other funder. I think it's called the AfriChild Center, which is based at Makerere. When we talked about what we are doing, we met with them, we talked about what they are doing, and they are very excited about it and are willing to support us to be able to even translate the game, if possible, into the local languages and roll it out all over the country.
That's going to make it much more accessible when the language translations happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Dr. Esther, that you would like to note on this regard?
In terms of the game?
Yeah.
Maybe not. And thank you so much. Unless there are any questions.
We might have an active YouTube chat after this. If you're available, you can answer questions of our audience on the chat directly. Okay. Or if anybody has questions, we can prompt them to directly write to us, and you can respond to them.
All right. Thank you so much.